oh no, your AWS root account got hijacked because your credentials got stolen. I hope the situation is not that bad for you, but in today's video I'm going to explore with you how we can minimize the risk and what you should do to prevent that from happening. So this is the first video of my AWS series, which I'm starting because I'd like to show more AWS and how you can use it. And for that, you actually need an AWS account. And if you have never heard of AWS, AWS stands for Amazon Web Services, and this is basically just a big cloud. And in that cloud, you can use AWS services, for example, like S3, which is a storage service where you can put data in, you can spin up databases, you can spin up virtual machines, you can deploy Docker containers, and there are millions of possibilities you can do with AWS. That's why I love it. And for trying AWS, they provide a very generous free tier for specific services with a certain usage amount. And if you're just creating a new account, you also get 12 months free tier for some other services, like a virtual machine, for example. Yeah, let's check out their AWS free tier website. And in that we have free trials, 12 months free for different services, and always free services. So we can filter a bit around, and I just want to show, for example, that we have some always free services, for example, 25 gigs of dynamoDB storage, which is a NoSQL database. We have 1 million lambda requests for free in our account. We have 1 million SNS publishes, so this is a notification service by AWS, and there's so much more to try in AWS. So I totally recommend registering a new account within the 12 months free tier to play around with different services, get to know AWS, and gain some hands-on experience. So after we have created, or after you have created your free account, or you already have an account, I would recommend logging into that root account. The account you just created is called the root account because it's the main account you have. So let's log into our root account, and the first thing I would really recommend doing is setting up the multi-factor authentication, so the MFA. If you haven't done that, I totally recommend doing that. You can go to the top right to your account name, head down to security credentials, and then you have a multi-factor authentication tab here. And in that box, you can assign an MFA device, and that could be an authenticator app, a Yubikey, a security key, or even a hardware TOTP token. And I already have done that. And the next thing we want to do is actually not continue using our root account, because with that root account you can look into your billing, you can create new users, you can create new privileges, and so you're a full administrator of that account. And using that is actually a bad habit, because you can delete, create, and whatever, everything in there. So a best practice to do is create lower privileged accounts, and that is actually called least privilege principle. And I'm going to show how you can secure your root account by creating lower privileged other accounts or roles in your account. Oh, and another thing you never should do is create access keys in your root account, because those access keys, they're actually quite easy to get stolen somehow. And with the access key, you get access to programmatic access to your account via CLI, for example. And with the CLI, you can also change everything. So it is actually a bad idea to have access keys created in your root account. So on the top, you also see we are on the root user and we have 0 access keys. And I would recommend not having access keys in your root account. So what we have to do now is we head over to the IAM Identity Center and just type it in the search bar and go there. And there's now one key point. On the top right, you have different regions of AWS. So the standard one is the US East 1 within the North Virginia region, but I'm going into the Europe Frankfurt region. So we have to enable the IAM Identity Center in our root account. And now we can create new users with lower privileges. So we can head over to users, for example, and we have to create a new user. And give that one a username, and for password you can choose send an email to this user with password setup instructions, so I as an administrator don't have to know the password for my created user. Just the email address, some details about the user, and then just scroll down to next. Oh, and I forgot, I didn't put an actual email address in here. So we don't have a group here. And now we can create, for example, an administrator group. And we go ahead and create a group. And this one is just called admins. And yeah, we create the group. So we go back to our creating user dialog, refresh the button, and we put our user into the admins group. So we click next and scroll down to add the user. Now in the background there's an email being sent to the email address where the user can now register, but we haven't mapped any permissions to our admin group. So let's go ahead and click the permission sets on the left. Now we can create a permission set. And we could actually use predefined permission sets by AWS, or we can also create custom permissions. For example, we only want the user to access a certain type of AWS service. But I'm going here with the predefined permission sets. So for example, we can choose the administrator access to provide full access to AWS services and services. We can grant permissions for billing and cost management. We can create a database administrator. We could create a network administrator. We can create a full access power user for AWS services, but does not allow management of users and groups, which is also quite helpful. We can choose the read-only access, so the user will only be able to read data but not create or delete anything, and stuff like that. So there are thousands of possibilities you can choose, and I'm going here with the power user access. So I click next. And the permission set name is just power user access. I could enter a description, but I don't want that. For the session duration, I just choose 1 hour. That's the default. So after 1 hour, the user will be getting logged out from the AWS console by default. And yep, click next, create the permission set. And the next thing we have to do now is to match the permission set with our administrator group. And we do that in the left tab here with AWS accounts. We assign users or groups with the AWS account here. So make sure to tick the box and then click assign users or groups. And I want the administrator group. I choose that, click next, to have the permission sets power user access. So I click next and click now submit. And now every user in the admins group does have the permission set power user access. So let's just log out of our root account and check our emails. So we got an email saying, hello Marco, your administrator has invited you to the IAM Identity Center and I want to accept the invitation. Now I have to set a password for my newly created user, and this has to be between 8 and 64 characters. I totally recommend going for a 64 character password, and I set a new password. And now I can sign in with my just set password for the user. And I'm being asked now to create a multi-factor authentication device because my organization requires a multi-factor authentication. This is enabled by default, and you could choose the authenticator app, for example Google Authenticator or any authenticator app of your choice. You can choose a Yubikey security key, or you could use the built-in authenticator mechanism, fingerprint scanner, and I'll just go ahead with that one. And now I have to create my passkey here for that. So I'm using my fingerprint sensor, and now I can only log in from that device with my fingerprint here. After we've done that, we are now in a landing zone of the AWS login page, and I can click the AWS account which my user is assigned to and log in to the management console or create command line or programmatic access. So let's check that section out. And in that section, we have all the information we need to access our AWS account from the CLI, from our terminal here. And if you're interested in that, just let me know in the comments how you can use the AWS CLI, for example. But we close the pop-up here and we go ahead and log in into the management console. And as you can already see on the bottom right here, we have the cost and usage widget here, and we are getting an access denied because our user is not able to perform this action to get information about costs and billing. So let's go ahead and check our billing and cost management, for example. And yeah, as you can see, everything is denied here. We can't see anything, or we can go ahead to the account. And we don't have the account get information permission for my AWS account. And easy as that, we have a least privilege power user created to work in the AWS console. A next step, for example, would be to create some alert or notification when the root login is triggered. There are guides for that on AWS if you want to implement that, or yeah, let me know in the comments if you want me to show you how that works. And if you have any topic wishes which I should cover in AWS, just let me know, because I'm starting now the AWS series where we discover different AWS services, for example, AWS Lambda for serverless functions, S3 for storing data, SNS and SQS, which are messaging services for exchanging events between different applications or AWS services. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed how to make your AWS account more secure and yeah, never use the full administrator in your daily usage. And catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.